The crystal streets of Valera Prime gleamed like rivers of light, reflecting the brilliant banners that snapped in the wind. Cheers thundered through the capital as soldiers marched, their polished armor scattering sunbeams across towering spires. To outsiders, it was the portrait of triumph, the end of another victorious campaign, the assurance of strength. Yet Taren, standing rigid among the guards flanking the Grand Avenue, noticed what few would. His eyes weren't on the glittering procession, but on Queen Ziravel herself, the radiant symbol of Valeran power, walking at the head of her court with regal poise. To the people, she was flawless. To Taren, her steps carried the faintest tremor. The queen's movements were practiced perfection, but her hand lingered a second too long on the arm of her attendant. The light around her dimmed ever so slightly, the glow of her bioluminescent markings flickering at intervals no casual spectator would detect. Taren's jaw tightened. He had been assigned to palace guard long enough to memorize every cadence of her presence. He knew how she moved when strength flowed through her veins, and what he saw now unsettled him. The roar of the crowd masked the small falter in her stride, but Taren caught it. She pressed on, lifting her chin higher, her luminous eyes unwavering as if sheer will alone kept her upright. To the thousands who adored her, Queen Ziravel shone brighter than the banners overhead. But to Taren, watching from his post, the truth whispered in silence. Something was wrong. The parade pressed forward in a swell of music and thunderous chants. Children waved crystalline ribbons, vendors shouted, and the entire avenue shook with celebration. The queen raised a hand in acknowledgement, her expression serene, her posture carved from grace itself. And then it happened. One moment she strode forward, the next her body faltered. The hand she lifted trembled, her knees buckled, and in the midst of the roaring triumph, Queen Ziravel collapsed. Gasps shattered the cheers. Trumpets fell silent. For a breathless instant, the capital itself seemed to stop. Guards surged inward, their polished formation breaking apart as they rushed to form a wall of steel around her. Taren was already moving, shoving through the chaos with his heart hammering against his ribs. "Protect the queen!" voices barked. Panic rippled through the crowd. Mothers pulled children close. Onlookers screamed. Others pressed forward to see what had happened. The radiant symbol of Valera, their eternal monarch, lay motionless upon the crystalline street. Taren dropped to one knee beside her, his training momentarily at war with the raw surge of fear clawing at his chest. Her bioluminescent markings flickered violently now, not the steady glow of a ruler, but the erratic pulse of someone fighting a hidden battle. "Your Majesty!" His voice was low, urgent, unheard above the clamor. Her eyes fluttered open just a fraction, catching his. For an instant, something unspoken passed between them. A plea, a warning, a truth caged behind failing strength. Then her head lolled, and attendants swept in, lifting her with careful, desperate hands. The royal physicians shouted for space, their faces masks of practiced calm, but their eyes betrayed alarm. Above, the banners still waved in the wind, but the victory they proclaimed had already curdled into dread. Taren stood frozen, the echo of her gaze burning into him. He had seen the truth beneath the collapse. The queen was not simply weary. She was dying. The queen was whisked away from the avenue in a blur of guards and medics, the great procession dissolving into frantic disorder. The roar of the people transformed into a storm of speculation, whispers that grew sharper with every passing heartbeat. She stumbled. No, she fainted. Was it poison? Impossible. The queen cannot fall. By the time Taren fought through the crowd to the palace gates, the rumors had already multiplied like wildfire. Some swore it was sabotage, others insisted it was exhaustion after victory. But Taren had seen more than a stumble. He had witnessed the failing glow in her veins, the trembling in her hand. Inside the palace, order was forced upon chaos. Guards doubled their posts, couriers rushed through the marbled halls, and attendants spoke in hushed tones that fell silent whenever others passed. The air itself felt heavy, as though the great crystalline spires were holding their breath. Taren was dismissed to his usual patrol, but his thoughts refused obedience. He could still see her eyes as they met his, not the gaze of a monarch addressing a subject, but the look of a woman caught in a struggle no one else seemed willing to name. He overheard physicians muttering behind closed doors, their words clipped and urgent, yet carefully concealed from the ears of the court. He noticed counselors pressing their lips tight when asked about her condition, their reassurances too smooth, too rehearsed. And slowly, a chilling certainty settled in his chest. This wasn't simply illness, nor the exhaustion of campaigns. It was something deeper, something guarded as though the survival of the empire itself depended on silence. Whatever truth had struck Queen Ziravel down in front of her people, the palace intended to bury it. But Taren had already seen too much. Night fell over the crystalline spires, their glow dimmed to a hushed violet that cloaked the palace in shadows. Taren moved through the corridors on his assigned rounds, but his steps carried a different weight. Each echo reminded him of what he'd seen, of the truth others refused to speak aloud. At the Queen's wing, guards lined the halls, their faces masks of unwavering loyalty. Yet their eyes betrayed unease. They, too, had seen their immortal sovereign collapse like any fragile being. Still, none dared whisper it. The orders were clear. Her Majesty is recovering. The people must not fear. But Taren's instincts burned against the command. When the others shifted their watch, he slipped past, drawn by the faint murmur of voices from beyond a half-open chamber door. Inside, the royal physicians circled her like anxious moons. Her form lay draped across silken bedding, the glow of her markings faint and erratic. One physician's voice trembled as he whispered, "It worsens by the hour. The strain is tearing through her." "Then we mask it," another snapped. "If the Empire believes she weakens, the fracture will spread faster than any illness." Taren's hands clenched at his sides. "Mask it." The word struck like a blade. The Queen stirred faintly, her eyes opening just enough for a sliver of light to spill toward the ceiling. She whispered something too soft for the healers to catch. But Taren, standing just beyond the door, heard it. A single word. "Enough." His breath caught. She wasn't asking for more medicine, nor strength, nor help. She was begging the weight itself to relent. A guard's voice suddenly barked from behind him, and Taren straightened, masking his own trespass. But as he walked away, her voice echoed in his mind. The Queen was not merely ill. She was carrying a truth so heavy it was breaking her from within. The chance came 2 nights later. Taren's shift had ended, yet something in him refused to leave. He lingered in the quieter halls near the Queen's chambers, where the guards rotated less often and the silence was thick enough to hide in. When the attendants finally withdrew, their arms heavy with vials and instruments, Taren moved. His heart hammered with every step as he approached the guarded doors. To his surprise, they opened with a muted chime. A command had been left, intentional or otherwise, for the chamber to remain unbarred. Inside, the room shimmered faintly with crystalline light. The Queen lay reclined against carved pillows, her luminous patterns flickering like a dying flame. For a moment Taren thought she slept, until her voice, thin but steady, broke the stillness. "I knew you would come." He froze. "Your Majesty." Her gaze, dim yet piercing, cut across the distance. "You saw it. On the streets. You see what they try so hard to veil." Taren stepped closer, unsure whether to bow or kneel, his training at war with the raw weight of her presence. "I saw you fall, and I know it wasn't weakness. Not the kind they whisper about." The faintest shadow of a smile touched her lips. "Then you understand more than my counsel, more than the healers who drown me in remedies. My fall was not chance nor frailty. It was truth breaking through the lie." His chest tightened. "What truth?" She shifted, wincing as though every motion cost her a battle. "That I am not what they believe me to be. Not eternal. Not unyielding. Not invincible." Her hand trembled as she reached toward the crystal light above her bed. "I have carried a burden they must never know. but it is unraveling faster than I can hold it. Taren swallowed hard. The air around her seemed heavier, charged with something that pulled at the edges of reality itself. In that moment, he realized he was standing at the threshold of a secret no guard, no counselor, no healer had ever been permitted to hear. And the queen was ready to give it to him. The chamber seemed to grow smaller as her words pressed against the silence. Taren stood rooted, torn between duty and the gravity of what she was about to share. Queen Ziravel's glow flickered faintly across her skin, her light more fragile than he had ever imagined it could be. She lowered her voice, as though even the walls could not be trusted. They believe I am unending, that Valera has always known me and always will, that myth has held our empire together for generations. But the truth— She paused, her breath catching. The truth is I am not endless. I am sustained. Taren's brow furrowed. Sustained. She nodded slowly. The crown they worship is not a crown of eternity. It is a chain. My life is bound to a source older than this world itself. A core of energy hidden beneath the capital, one that I alone can bear. The power feeds me, yes, but it consumes me in return. The words sank into him like stones into water. The queen, their immortal symbol, was mortal after all, tethered to a burden no one else could survive. I have carried it for centuries, she whispered, eyes closing as if the confession itself drained her. Each battle, each triumph, each speech of victory, all borrowed against the time I had left. And now— Her hand trembled. Now the chain phrase. Taren's chest tightened. The collapse, the tremors, the faltering light. It all fit together like shards forming a cruel picture. If the people knew, she continued, their faith would shatter. The empire would fracture. And so the council buries the truth, even as it devours me. Her eyes opened again, dim but burning with quiet fire. But you, soldier, you saw me fall. You saw the truth clawing through the mask. That makes you dangerous. Or— A pause, her voice softening. It makes you necessary. Taren's breath caught, the weight of her words heavy on his shoulders. For the first time, he realized she wasn't just confiding in him. She was choosing him. The queen's gaze fixed on Taren, sharp despite her fading strength. You must go to the core, she whispered. The source beneath this city. It is failing, and so am I. If it collapses, Valera falls with me. Taren's pulse thundered. Why me? Because you've seen the truth, she breathed. And because you still stand. Her hand, trembling, pressed a small crystal seal into his palm. A key of sorts, pulsing faintly with hidden power. Guard it, carry it, and if the time comes, choose whether Valera should remain chained to me or finally be free. The weight of her words sank deeper than any armor he had ever worn. In that instant, Taren understood. He was no longer just a soldier. He was the keeper of her secret and the fate of an empire. Taren left the queen's chamber with the crystal seal burning cold in his hand, its faint glow bleeding through his fingers. Outside, the palace still bustled with rumors disguised as reassurances. Counselors whispering promises of recovery they didn't believe. But Taren knew. He alone carried the truth now. The queen was not eternal, her strength was unraveling, and the heart of Valera itself was breaking with her. He paused at a balcony overlooking the city. The crystalline towers shimmered like stars caught in stone, banners still fluttering as if nothing had changed. Yet to Taren, every sparkle was fragile, every glow a reminder that all of it teetered on the edge of collapse. The queen's voice echoed in his mind. Choose whether Valera should remain chained or finally be free. He clenched the seal tighter. He hadn't asked for this burden, yet fate had thrust it into his hands. Soldier, guard, servant, those roles had shattered. Now he stood as something far greater and far more dangerous. Behind him, the capital celebrated illusions. Ahead of him, an empire's fate waited in silence. And Taren, keeper of the queen's final truth, stepped into the shadows, knowing his next choice would decide the future of worlds.